Hello friends, my name is Ashish Nagra. I am Director Global Voice, a leading training and management consulting company. In my corporate career, I have interviewed people right from engineer and management trainees right up to vice presidents. And on the basis of that experience, I like to share a few thoughts on interview skills with you. The first step in any interview is to understand as to how do companies hire people for different positions. Let's start with a small example. You are in a college and you have been made the president of a blood bank society and you are supposed to hire 3 more people for your team. Now, how will you go about selecting these people? I've asked a lot of people and most of them say that they would be looking for people who are healthy. Now, a person who is healthy can be a good blood donor, but he may or may not be an effective team member of a blood bank society. Now, when we talk of blood bank society, what is that the society is supposed to do? The blood bank society is obviously supposed to enroll more and more members who will come forward and donate blood for a cause. So, which means that you need people who have good communication skills, who are very confident, and who have got good convincing power so that they can go out, talk to people, more and more people, convince them to come forward and donate blood. So which means that a healthy person may or may not be the right fit. But what we would need would be people with these 3 important parameters, which means good comm skills, very good level of confidence, and good convincing power. Similarly, most of the companies also hire people on the basis of certain parameters, and this is what we call competencies. Now, you will obviously ask as to what are competencies. In simple plain words, competence is nothing but an ability to do things successfully or do something successfully. Now, competencies can be categorized in 1, knowledge. That means the subject knowledge that we have. The second is skills. We all understand the difference between knowledge and skills. Knowledge is what we know and skill is the application of that knowledge. Now, when we talk of skills, we have hard skills and we have soft skills. Hard skills are your functional skills. For an example, in case you're an accountant, then what you know about accounting is your functional skill set. Soft skills is a very wide spectrum. It would have things like your good communication skills, your attitude, your emotional intelligence, your team abilities, your leadership skills. So for different job roles, you would need different kinds of soft skills. So on the basis of this, competencies are a good mix of your knowledge and skills. The next important thing is that different job roles would require different kinds of competencies. Let's take 3 examples to make things more clear. Let's take an example where a company is wanting to hire people for a research engineer's position. Now, what are the kind of competencies that the company would define for a research engineer's job role? The first, the person should have very good subject knowledge. Obviously, we all understand that a person who has to get into an R&D job role should be very thorough with his own subject. So the first competency would be exceptionally good subject knowledge. The second competency would be creativity. Now, the reason why creativity has to be a set of competencies is now a person who has to innovate, a person who has to come up with something new, who has to design a new product, who has to design a new service, a person who has to create or invent something, that person has to be creative or a person has to be innovative. So that means that is another competency that the company would be looking at. The third is patience. Now we all understand that wherever you are trying to create something new, it may not happen in the first go. It may take a lot of effort, maybe 3 trials, 4 trials, 5 trials. So that means the person needs to have a patience. So for a research engineer's job, the company may define that the set of competencies which I am looking at would be your extremely good subject knowledge, your patience and your creativity. Let's take another example. of a production engineer's job role. Now, when we are hiring a person for a production engineer's job role, what are the kind of competencies I have defined for this job role? The first is a person should be system driven. A person should be very systematic in whatever he does, because that is what you need on a production floor. The next is a person should have very good people management skills. The reason is that in any large manufacturing setup, you would have thousands of workers on the shop floor, and a production engineer or a production manager would obviously need to manage this large workforce. This means that a person should be good in terms of his management skills. So that's the second competency that a company would be defining for this job role. The third would be an eye for detail, because you have to take care of the wastages, you have to understand when the production is going to start, when the production is going to end, what are the wastages, how efficiently are you going to produce that product. So all these things require a very, very good detailing. So that's the reason a person should also have an eye for details. The fourth thing is your ability to work under pressure. In any manufacturing setup, as we all know, that there are targets which have to be met. You have to deliver n number of products within a stipulated time frame. So you obviously would be required to work under pressure. So that means now the four competencies which I would define for a production job role would be a systematic approach, your people management skills, eye for detail, and then ability to work under pressure. So which means that these are the key competencies for a production engineer's job role. Let's take third example. I am hiring an MBA for a sales job. What is that I would be defining as my competencies for that particular job role? The first, a person should have excellent communication skills, because a person who is into sales should obviously be able to communicate his ideas to other people. He has to put across his ideas to other people, which means that a person should be very, very good in terms of his basic communication. The next is convincing part. In case I am not able to convince a person to buy my product, I am no good for that job role. So that means the second competency which I would define would be convincing part. The third, confidence, for obvious reasons, because in case I am not confident, I would not be able to go and sell anything to anybody. Yeah. Then the fourth is a person should be having a lot of initiative, and person should be outgoing. For the simple reason that salespeople are supposed to get across to more and more number of prospective clients to sell or market their products and services. So which means that for any sales job, I would define these four competencies, which is excellent communication skills, convincing part, confidence, and an outgoing personality or a person with a lot of initiative. Now there are few observations which we have from these. Now these three different job roles have different set of competencies, which means that when companies are hiring people, they first would define the set of competencies which are required for that particular job role, and then they will evaluate people on the basis of these competencies. So what is important for us in case we are appearing for any job interview is to understand that we have to map our knowledge and skills with the competencies required for that job role. Yeah, so that is something which we need to understand. So this is the first step, and next things of an interview I would be sharing in my next videos. Thank you so much for your time.